chosen one, stop scrolling right now, because this is not just another video drifting through your feed. This is a divine interruption, a moment that was scheduled before you ever understood how prayer worked, before you ever knew how deep your calling really was. Heaven has pressed pause on the noise around you to deliver this word directly to you, not to everyone, not to the crowd, but to you. And the reason this message feels different is because it is different. You are not scrolling randomly. You were not just curious. Your spirit was already being pulled here, because when heaven wants to speak to someone, it doesn't shout into the masses, it whispers to the marked. And you are marked. There is a reason. Your life has never felt ordinary. A reason you've always sensed that you were meant for more, even when your circumstances tried to convince you were otherwise. You were never meant to live small. You were never meant to borrow forever. You were never designed to survive inside broken systems that reward compromise and punish purity. You were chosen to steward something greater, something heavier, something that requires preparation. And that is why your journey has looked the way it has. What you called delay was actually divine reservation. What you thought was rejection was heaven saying, not yet. Because you were not overlooked. You were set aside, reserved for a time like this. And hear this clearly. A financial transfer connected to your assignment has already been written. Not planned, not discussed, written. Your name is already on it. Not by man, not by corporations, not by systems that rise and fall, but by the hand of the Almighty. And that's why nothing you tried to force ever worked. That's why shortcuts never satisfied you. That's why even when money came quickly, it never stayed. Because what's assigned to you cannot be accessed through hustle alone. It responds to alignment, and you've been learning alignment the hard way through pressure, through silence, through seasons where it felt like nothing was moving, even though you were giving everything you had. But heaven was watching, measuring, refining, building your capacity to carry what's coming without pride, without fear, without apology. You see, heaven does not release weight to shallow vessels. And the reason you felt stretched, stripped, and isolated is because your life is being expanded from the inside out. You weren't being punished, you were being prepared, because what's about to move through your hands is not just provision, it's purpose. It's not just money, it's mandate. And that mandate requires someone who knows how to walk humbly, give freely, and move boldly without needing permission from the world. That's why you've always felt disconnected from Babylon's economy, why grinding for scraps never sat right with your spirit, why you've always known deep down that you were born with access to a different treasury, one that doesn't operate on credit scores, favoritism, or manipulation, but on obedience, faith, and timing. And the truth is this: if your spirit wasn't ready for this message, you wouldn't even be hearing it. Heaven doesn't send financial instructions to those who are not trusted to carry them. And the fact that you're still here listening, still leaning in, still feeling that inner confirmation rising in your chest, means this word has found the right person. You. And before anything changes on the outside, something must lock in on the inside. You must stop seeing yourself as someone waiting for a break and start recognizing yourself as someone carrying an assignment. Because chosen ones don't stumble into overflow, they grow into it. And your growth has been costly. You've paid for it with tears, with obedience that no one applauded, with seasons where it felt like you were building something invisible while others seemed to rise effortlessly. But what they built was image. What you were building was foundation, and foundation always takes longer, but it holds more. And now that foundation is complete the season is shifting. Now the door you couldn't open is beginning to move on its own. And this is where you need to listen carefully, because this message is not here to hype you. It's here to position you. You are not being invited to feel good. You are being summoned to remember who you are. No more rehearsing old stories of lack. No more identifying with survival. No more walking like a spiritual beggar when heaven has already marked you as a steward. This is the moment where you stop asking if it's real and start agreeing with what's already been written, because agreement is the key that activates release. And right now, heaven is watching how you respond, not to your circumstances, but to this word. This is not the transfer yet. This is the notice. This is the alert. This is the moment before movement, and what you do with this moment matters, because chosen one, your name is not about to be added to the list. It has been there all along, and now finally, it is your time to recognize it. Chosen one. Now listen closely, because what you are about to understand will reframe everything you thought was wrong with your life, especially around money timing and struggle. The reason your finances have been under constant pressure is not because you are irresponsible, unlucky, or lacking wisdom. It is because you are a high-value target, and hell does not waste resources attacking people who pose no threat. The intensity of the warfare you faced is directly connected to the level of authority you are called to carry. You see, the enemy is not afraid of people who chase money for status. He is not threatened by those who want wealth to prove something. His greatest fear is a righteous one who understands stewardship, because a resourced righteous person does not just spend money. They move systems, they fund change, they disrupt darkness. And that is why your finances have been contested again and again. That is why, just when you thought you were about to break through, something would happen. An unexpected bill, a closed door, a delay that made no sense, a decision that almost worked but fell apart at the last moment. Not because you were doing something wrong, but because you were getting too close to clarity, too close to alignment, too close to release. And the enemy knows something most people never realize. He knows what is written about you. He knows the potential attached to your obedience. And he knows that if you ever fully step into wealth with kingdom motives, his influence loses ground. That is why confusion has tried to cloud your decisions, why mistiming has followed your efforts, why it felt like you were always a step behind even when you were doing everything right. But hear this clearly, that pattern was not random. It was resistance. Always shows up when something valuable is being guarded, and the fact that you're still standing means the resistance failed to stop you. It only revealed the importance of what you carry. Think about it. Ordinary people are not met with extraordinary opposition. Average callings do not provoke sustained warfare. The level of pushback you experienced is proof that your assignment carries weight, and that weight is financial as well as spiritual, because money is not neutral. It amplifies whatever holds it. And heaven does not entrust amplification to unstable hands. So before the release, there is refinement. Before the overflow, there is warfare. And before the manifestation, there is pressure. This is the part most people don't understand. They see the delay and assume disqualification. But chosen ones recognize delay as development. You weren't being blocked. You were being trained to hear clearly under stress, trained to remain faithful without confirmation, trained to keep your heart clean when resources were low. Because the greatest test is not how you act when you have abundance. It is how you act when you don't, and you pass tests that would have disqualified others. You didn't turn bitter. You didn't abandon your values. You didn't sell your integrity for relief. And that matters more than you know. Because hell's strategy has always been simple. Wear you down before you arrive, exhaust you before you receive, convince you to settle for less before the greater shows up. And there were moments when you felt that pressure intensely, moments when you wondered if it would ever change, moments when the weight felt unfair. But even then, something inside you refused to quit. That was not stubbornness, that was destiny resisting erasure. And here's the truth that needs to settle in your spirit. Right now, the enemy does not attack what he can already control. The fact that he fought your finances so hard is evidence that he could not control you, that you would not bow, that you would not compromise. And so he tried to delay, distract, and drain you. But he failed because you are still here, still believing, still listening, still aligned enough to hear this word. And that alone tells a powerful story. It tells you that the warfare phase is ending, because warfare intensifies. Right before a shift, resistance grows loud. Right before a door opens and pressure peaks. Right before release. That is not motivational talk. That is spiritual pattern. And you're standing in it right now. This is the moment when you stop interpreting the fight as failure and start seeing it as confirmation that what is coming is real, confirmation that the assignment is intact, confirmation that the enemy's time is running out. And there is something else you need to understand. The warfare was not just about money. It was about your mindset, because if the enemy could convince you to think like a victim, he could delay you even longer. If he could make you identify with lack, you would carry scarcity into abundance and sabotage what heaven wanted to release. So he attacked your confidence, your clarity, your timing. But even there, heaven was working, stripping away dependency on systems, people, and outcomes, teaching you to move by obedience instead of urgency. Because urgency leads to mistakes, but alignment leads to acceleration. And now that alignment is locking in, you are about to notice something shift internally. A calm, where there used to be anxiety, clarity. Where there used to be confusion, restraint. Where there used to be desperation. That is how, the season is changing, because before God moves things around you, he stabilizes things within you. And the version of you listening to this right now is not the same version who started this journey. You have been refined by fire, strengthened by resistance, and sharpened by silence. And that is why the next phase will look different. The fight will not be the same. The pressure will not hit the same, because you are no longer operating from survival. You are stepping into stewardship, and stewardship terrifies the enemy, because a steward understands responsibility, timing, and authority. And once you step into that posture fully, hell loses leverage. So do not misread what you've been through. Do not call it failure. Do not call it bad luck. Do not call it punishment. Call it proof that you were dangerous enough to be opposed. Proof that your future carries weight. Proof that the enemy saw what was coming before you did. And now that you see it too, everything changes, because awareness shifts. Posture shifts. Authority, and authority unlocks provision. This is why this part of your story matters. Not so you dwell on the pain, but so you understand the victory being prepared. You are not behind. You are right on schedule. The warfare did not disqualify you. It qualified you. And what tried to stop you has already failed, because chosen one, you are still here. And that means the release is closer than you think. Chosen one. Now, we need to go deeper, because what you are stepping into cannot be understood with surface thinking. This is where many people lose clarity. Not because the promise isn't real, but because they don't understand the system behind it, and the system you are connected to is not the world's economy. It is heaven's. And heaven's economy operates on principles that most people never learn, let alone master. There are storehouses in heaven, real ones, not metaphors, not poetic language, but reserves of provision strategy, favor, timing, and supply that are held back for specific assignments. And the reason the world mocks this idea is because it cannot access it. The world is built on scarcity, competition, manipulation, and exhaustion. But heaven is built on order, obedience, and alignment. And you were never designed to thrive in systems that reward compromise. That's why, even when you tried to play the game the way others did, something always felt off. Something always resisted, because your spirit knew you didn't belong to that economy. you belong to a higher one, and that higher economy does not respond to hustle, panic, or desperation. It responds to posture, timing, and trust. And that is why your journey has felt slow, heavy, and at times unfair, because heaven does not release its wealth into immature hands. Not because God withholds out of cruelty, but because He protects what is holy. And wealth with assignment is holy. It carries power, influence, and consequence. And power without character destroys the vessel that holds it. So before the vault opens, the vessel must be strengthened, purified, and sealed. And that is exactly what has been happening in your life. You weren't stuck, you were being fortified. Every delay was adding structure. Every closed door was reinforcing your discernment. Every season of lack was teaching you stewardship before abundance. Because heaven does not pour out wealth to impress people. It releases resources to fulfill purpose. And purpose requires wisdom, restraint, and responsibility. That's why you felt stripped of things you thought you needed, relationships, plans, comforts, even versions of yourself that no longer fit. It wasn't loss. It was preparation. Heaven was making room. You cannot pour new wine into old containers, and you cannot release kingdom wealth into a mindset still shaped by fear, comparison, or scarcity. So heaven took its time with you. Not because you were slow, but because what you are meant to carry is heavy, and heavy things require deep foundations. Most people want the overflow without the excavation, but you were willing to let God dig deep, even when it hurt, even when it confused you, even when it left you feeling exposed. And now that digging has reached the right depth, the storehouses are beginning to respond. Because here's the truth most people never hear. Storehouses are not accessed by effort. They are accessed by alignment. You don't pray harder to open them. You don't strive longer to earn them. You align your life with the principles that govern them: integrity, obedience, humility, generosity, and trust. And alignment is costly because it means saying no when others say yes. It means waiting when others rush. It means obeying instructions that make no sense to logic, but make perfect sense to the Spirit. And you've been doing that in silence when no one was watching, when there was no guarantee of outcome. And heaven has been recording every one of those moments, because heaven does not forget quiet obedience. And now those records are being reviewed because storehouses are not random. They are targeted. What is being released to you is not generic wealth. It is specific provision designed to meet specific needs connected to your assignment. That is why you will not receive it the same way others do. It may come through unexpected channels, unusual timing, uncommon favor, doors opening without effort, opportunities aligning without manipulation. And when it happens, it will feel different. Not frantic, not overwhelming, but steady, peaceful, and clear. Because heaven's wealth does not come with anxiety attached, it comes with clarity. And that clarity is one of the signs you are approaching the vault. Another sign is the internal shift. You've already been sensing the restlessness with old patterns, the loss of interest in things that once distracted you, the growing discomfort with compromise that is not boredom, that is preparation. Your spirit is being tuned to operate at a higher frequency, because what you are about to steward requires focus, discernment, and precision. Heaven does not flood chosen ones with excess, just to see what happens. It releases resources to see what will be built, restored, healed, and transformed. And that is why your wealth is connected to people, generations, and impact far beyond you. This is not about luxury. It is about legacy. Not about status, but about strategy. And that is why the storehouses remained closed until now, because timing matters. Released too early, and the blessing becomes a burden. Released too late, and people attached to your assignments suffer unnecessarily. And heaven is perfect in timing, never early, never late, always precise. and you are now standing in a moment of precision where preparation has met readiness, and readiness is not perfection. It is surrender. Heaven did not wait until you had everything figured out. It waited until you were yielded enough to say, "Whatever you release, I will steward it your way, not my way." That posture unlocks vaults because heaven responds to trust, and trust is proven over time through consistency, not emotion. And you have proven it not by words, but by endurance, by staying faithful when it would have been easier to walk away, by continuing to believe when evidence was thin, by choosing obedience over relief. And that kind of faith carries weight in the spirit. It moves things, it opens things, it accelerates things. And right now, movement has begun, even if you cannot see it. Yet things are shifting in the unseen. Alignments are forming, resources are being reassigned. Doors are being repositioned because heaven does not store wealth to keep it locked away forever. It stores it until the right hands are ready, and those hands are yours. But hear this carefully. The opening of the storehouse is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of stewardship. When the vault opens, responsibility increases, accountability deepens, and discernment becomes critical. Because not everything that comes will be meant to be kept. Some things will be meant to pass through you, to fund, to build, to bless, to restore. And that is why your heart had to be trained before your hands were filled. Because hands without heart alignment corrupt the flow. But you have been aligned, refined, and prepared. And that is why heaven trusts you. Not because you are flawless, but because you are faithful. And faithfulness is the currency that opens storehouses. Not perfection, not performance, and not pressure. So as you listen to this, let it settle in your spirit. You are not waiting on heaven. Heaven has been waiting on you to reach this posture. And now that you are here, the economy you were born into is about to become visible in your life. Not gradually, not painfully, but deliberately. And the shift you feel is real because the storehouses are responding, and the season of hidden preparation is giving way to revealed provision, not for your glory, but for the fulfillment of what you were always meant to build. Chosen one, this is the part where the journey becomes dangerous. Not because the promise isn't real, but because you are closer than you have ever been, and proximity always invites temptation. This is the moment. Many never talk about the moment. Right before breakthrough, when the enemy stops trying to block you and starts trying to negotiate with you, because he knows he can't stop what God has scheduled, but he can still try to convince you to trade it, to exchange something eternal for something immediate. This is the Esau trap, and it doesn't come dressed as evil. It comes dressed as relief, convenience, opportunity, and good enough. It whispers things like, maybe this is the door, maybe this is close enough, maybe you've waited long enough. Maybe God understands if you take this shortcut and chosen one. You have felt that pressure. You have stood in moments where the offer in front of you looked easier than obedience, where compromise looked smarter than waiting, where settling looks safer than trusting. And that is not because you are weak, it is because you are nearing the threshold. The enemy only negotiates when he senses loss. He doesn't waste energy offering shortcuts to people who are far from destiny. He offers them to those who are almost there. And that is why discernment becomes critical at this stage. Because not every open door is divine. Not every opportunity is aligned, and not every yes leads to inheritance. Some yeses lead to delay, bondage, and regret. And the tragedy is this. Many people don't lose their promise to failure. They lose it to comfort. Esau didn't lose his birthright because he was ignorant. He lost it because he was tired, hungry, and impatient. And fatigue can be more dangerous than rebellion, because fatigue makes you rationalize decisions you would never make in clarity. It makes you lower standards, blur boundaries, and justify choices that cost you later. And you have been tired tired of waiting, tired of holding faith without evidence, tired of watching others move forward while you felt stuck, and the enemy knows that he has been watching for the moment when weariness might speak louder than vision. But here's the truth you need to hear right now. What you are carrying is too valuable to be traded. Your birthright is not just money, it is identity, authority, and assignment. It is the right to steward resources with purpose, to build legacy without compromise, to walk in provision without chains attached, and anything that asks you to violate your integrity, silence your conviction, or abandon your values in exchange for speed is not from God, no matter how attractive it looks. Because what comes from heaven does not require you to betray who you are, to receive it. Heaven's wealth never demands your soul as payment, and that is how you tell the difference between inheritance and imitation. Imitation always rushes you. Inheritance anchors you. Imitation pressures you. Inheritance gives you peace. Imitation flatters your ego. Inheritance strengthens your character, and you have learned that difference through pain, through walking away from deals that weren't clean, through saying no to opportunities that looked profitable but felt wrong, through choosing purity over applause and obedience over approval. And those decisions mattered even when no one saw them, even when it felt like you were delaying your own breakthrough. You were not delaying it, you were protecting it. Because compromise poisons the very thing it tries to accelerate, and the enemy knows this. That is why he has been subtle, offering you lesser versions of the promise. Half doors, counterfeit provision paths that look similar, but lead somewhere else, and chosen one. You must hear this clearly. Do not trade your promise for comfort. Do not trade your calling for acceptance. Do not trade your future for immediate relief, because what God has prepared for you cannot be replaced once surrendered. Birthrights are not easily recovered once sold, and this warning is not here to scare you. It is here to sharpen you, because you are not Esau. You are not careless. You are not unaware. You have been trained by waiting, refined by lack, strengthened by resistance. And that training has given you discernment, the ability to pause, listen, and feel when something is off, even when it looks right on paper. Trust that discernment. It is part of your preparation, because the closer you get to release, the more convincing the counterfeit will appear. But counterfeits always require you to abandon something God already told you to protect: your peace, your values, your integrity, your obedience. And if something demands that price, it is too expensive, no matter how much it promises to pay you back, because what God releases comes without regret, without chains, without hidden costs. It comes clean, clear, and aligned, and that alignment is what keeps the flow pure. You are not being called to rush into wealth. You are being called to walk into inheritance, and inheritance has order, timing, and responsibility attached to it. That is why you must resist the urge to compare your timeline to others. Some people rise fast because they are building image, not legacy. Some people receive quickly because what they are holding does not carry weight. But what you are about to receive is heavy. It carries consequence, influence, and reach. And that kind of weight cannot rest on compromised foundations. So if you ever felt frustrated watching others win while you were still waiting, understand this: their path is not proof. You are late. It is proof you are different. Your road required refinement because your assignment requires trust, and trust cannot be rushed. It must be proven, and you have proven it not once, but repeatedly by choosing the long road, the clean road, the quiet road. And now the test is not whether you can endure lack. It is whether you can endure temptation, because abundance tests character in ways lack never could. And heaven is watching how you respond. Now, not with fear, but with clarity. This is the stage where you reaffirm your commitment, where you decide again, not emotionally, but deliberately, that you will not sell what heaven paid for with process. You will not exchange destiny for convenience, and you will not allow weariness to write a decision your future has to live with. Because chosen one, you are too close to settle, too aligned to compromise, and too aware to be deceived. This is not the moment to look for shortcuts. This is the moment to hold the line, because the promise you have been guarding is about to be revealed. And when it does, you will be glad you did not trade it away. You will look back at this moment and realize this warning was protection, not restriction. And the fact that you can hear it, feel it, and recognize it is proof that you are ready for what comes next. Chosen one, this is the moment where everything shifts, because revelation without movement expires, and you were never given this much clarity just to feel inspired. You were given it to step forward, to build, to steward, and to activate what heaven has already approved. This is the line between hearing and becoming, between waiting and walking, between prophecy and possession. And many people love prophetic words, but few are willing to carry prophetic responsibility. Yet that is exactly what this season is demanding of you. Because what is being released into your life is not just provision, it is permission. Not just increase, but instruction. Not just overflow, but ownership, and ownership requires posture, discipline, and courage. This is where chosen ones separate themselves from spectators, because spectators wait for conditions to be perfect. But builders move when alignment is clear, and alignment is clear for you. Now, you may not have every detail, but you have enough to take the next step. And heaven never reveals the full staircase at once. It reveals one step at a time to those it trusts to move. And you have been trained for this. Every season of silence taught you to listen. Every delay taught you restraint. Every loss taught you stewardship. And now all of that training is converging into action. Because the truth is this: God does not fund hesitation. He funds obedience. He does not release resources to those who are still negotiating their yes. He releases them to those who have already decided, and that decision is not emotional. It is settled. It is the quiet resolve that says, whatever you place in my hands, I will build with it. I will not waste it. I will not idolize it, and I will not shrink when it grows. And that posture is what unlocks flow, because flow follows faith in motion, not faith in theory. And this is why you've been feeling that internal urgency, not anxiety, but readiness, not pressure, but focus. That is the signal that the season of preparation has ended and the season of execution has begun. And execution will stretch you in new ways, because now the tests change. Before you were tested in lack. Now you will be tested in movement before you were tested in waiting. Now you will be tested in decision-making before you were tested in endurance. Now you will be tested in discernment. And this is where many people stumble, not because they lack faith, but because they hesitate too long. They wait for confirmation when heaven is waiting for agreement. But you do not need more signs. You need to act on what has already been revealed, because obedience activates alignment. Alignment activates provision, and provision activates impact, and impact is what your life is about to carry. This is not about playing small anymore. You have outgrown survival thinking. You have outgrown scarcity language. You have outgrown the version of yourself that kept waiting for permission. You are not here to be managed by fear or limited by old stories. You are here to build something that outlives you, something that shifts your bloodline, something that funds healing, restores broken systems, and brings light into places that have known only lack. And yes, that responsibility is heavy, but you were shaped for weight. That is why shallow spaces never satisfied you. That is why small thinking exhausted you. That is why compromise always felt wrong in your spirit, because you were never designed to coast. You were designed to construct. And construction requires intentional movement, even when the ground feels unfamiliar, even when the path looks unconventional, even when others don't understand what you are doing. Because obedience rarely makes sense to spectators, but it always makes sense to heaven. And heaven is backing your movement now, not because you have everything figured out, but because you have everything aligned. And alignment is more powerful than clarity. Alignment is what causes doors to open without force, resources to appear, without manipulation, and opportunities to align without striving. And as you step into this phase, you will notice something else shift. Your voice will carry more weight. Your decisions will feel sharper. Your discernment will deepen, because this is not just a financial upgrade, it is a leadership upgrade. You are being trusted with influence. And influence is stewardship at scale, which means the way you move now matters more than ever. Not every door needs to be entered. Not every opportunity needs to be accepted, and not every increase needs to be kept. Some things will come to pass through you, and that is where true fulfillment lives, in building, giving, restoring, and releasing, with purpose, not in accumulation. And this is why you must anchor yourself. Now anchor your values, anchor your discipline, anchor your obedience. Because momentum without grounding leads to collapse, but momentum with alignment leads to legacy. And legacy is what you are stepping into, whether you fully see it yet or not. This is the season where your faith becomes visible, where your obedience produces evidence, where the quiet work you did in obscurity begins to echo publicly, not for your glory, but as proof that obedience still works, that integrity still opens doors, and that patience still pays. And if there is one thing you must not do now, it is shrink. Do not downplay what you carry. Do not apologize for your growth. Do not delay what heaven has already approved, because delay at this stage is more dangerous than action. You have waited long enough. You have prepared long enough. And now the only thing that remains is your agreement. Not in theory, but in declaration. Because declaration seals intention, and intention directs movement. So this is the moment where you respond, not quietly, not passively, but deliberately. Because when you respond, you are not talking to an algorithm. You are speaking into the atmosphere. You are marking this moment as a turning point. So if your spirit knows this message was for you, if something inside you has been confirming, stirring, and aligning, as you listened, I want you to do something simple but powerful. Comment below the words, "I will build." Not as a slogan, but as a declaration, because when you type those words, you are saying, I accept the responsibility that comes with the blessing. I agree with heaven's timing, and I will steward what is released with purpose. And as you comment, let it be your line in the sand, the moment you move from waiting to walking. And if this message is spoken directly to you, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe so you stay connected to the instruction that follows activation, because what comes next will require clarity, discernment, and ongoing alignment. And staying connected matters in seasons of movement. Chosen. When this is not the end of the message, this is the beginning of the assignment. You were never meant to just hear, you were meant to build. And now is the time.